April 1992. Manchester Township, New Jersey. 7:15 a.m. The sanitation worker is making his morning rounds along Route 70 when something catches his eye. A cluster of black plastic garbage bags dumped beside the road, just sitting there in the grass like someone's trash that fell off a truck. He almost doesn't stop, almost just drives past. But something about the way the bags are positioned bothers him. They're not scattered randomly. They're placed deliberately, almost carefully, like someone wanted them to be found, but not right away. He pulls over, cuts the engine, and walks toward the bags. The smell hits him before he gets within 10 feet, that unmistakable stench of decay that makes your eyes water and your stomach lurch. He's found dead animals before, deer hit by cars and dragged off the road, raccoons that crawled into culverts to go away. But when he opens the first bag, he realizes this is something entirely different. Inside is a human leg, severed cleanly at the hip and knee joints, and it's been washed, not just rinsed, meticulously cleaned, like someone took their time, maybe even used soap. His hands start shaking as he backs away from the bags, fumbling for his radio. Because if there's one leg, there are probably more pieces, and whoever did this didn't just end someone's life in a moment of rage or passion. This was something calculated, something intimate, something that suggests a mind so broken that death itself wasn't enough. Dismemberment became part of the ritual. This discovery will expose one of New York City's most terrifying serial predators, a man who stalked gay bars looking for vulnerable victims, a surgical nurse who used his medical knowledge to disarticulate human bodies with chilling precision, and a ghost who almost got away with it because the technology to catch him simply didn't exist yet. Let's rewind to May 1991, because this isn't actually the first body. It's just the first one that will eventually connect the dots. Peter Stickney Anderson, 54 years old, is a banker and socialite from Philadelphia. He's in Manhattan for a fundraising party for a city council candidate, his friend Tony Brooks, someone he's known for years and believes in enough to chair his campaign committee. The party is at the home of Robert Brown, a Manhattan real estate agent and gay rights activist. It's the kind of sophisticated gathering where political connections are made over cocktails and catered appetizers. Peter fits right in, well-dressed, articulate, comfortable in these social circles. The party ends late. Peter tells friends he's heading back to Philadelphia, but needs to make one stop first. He doesn't say where. Nobody thinks to ask. 2 days later, on May 7th, a maintenance worker at a Pennsylvania Turnpike rest stop in Lancaster County discovers something horrifying in a trash barrel. Human remains, dismembered and stuffed into garbage bags. The body has been cut into 7 precise pieces: 2 arms, 2 legs, torso, and head, disarticulated at the joints, not hacked through bone. Whoever did this had surgical knowledge, maybe even surgical tools. Every piece has been washed clean, almost lovingly, like the killer couldn't bear the thought of his victim being dirty. Dental records identify the remains as Peter Stickney Anderson. His wallet is found with the body, which is unusual. Most robbers would have taken it. This wasn't about money. The Philadelphia police investigate, but leads go nowhere. Peter's life is examined in detail. His friends are interviewed. His movements that night are traced to the fundraiser, and then nothing. He simply vanished from Manhattan, only to reappear in pieces along the Pennsylvania Turnpike. The case goes cold. The Gay and Lesbian Community Center offers a $1,000 reward for information. Nobody comes forward. Peter Anderson becomes another unsolved case in a city where, in the early 1990s, the rate of unsolved cases, especially those involving gay men, is disturbingly high. But the killer isn't done, not even close. July 1992, 14 months after Peter Anderson's ending, Thomas Mulcahy, a 57-year-old executive from Massachusetts, is in New York City on business. He's been married for 33 years, has 4 children, and by all accounts, lives a conventional suburban life. But Thomas has a secret. He's gay, or at least bisexual, living a double life in an era when coming out could cost you everything: your job, your family, your entire social standing. On his final night in the city, Thomas makes ATM withdrawals near Times Square. The last one is at 11:15 p.m., $200 in cash. Witnesses later place him at the Townhouse Bar, an upscale gay establishment in Manhattan, heavily intoxicated and talking with a white male with brown hair. That's the last time anyone sees Thomas Mulcahy alive. His dismembered remains are found in multiple locations in New Jersey. 7 pieces, all washed clean, all showing the same surgical precision as Peter Anderson's body. The cuts are at joints, suggesting someone with anatomical knowledge. Ligature marks on his wrists indicate he was restrained before he was ended. But here's what makes investigators' blood run cold. Every single garbage bag has been washed too. Not just the body parts, the bags themselves have been meticulously cleaned before the remains were placed inside. Think about that for a second. This isn't someone trying to remove forensic evidence in a panic. This is someone who finds intimacy in the act of cleaning, who spends time with his victims even after they're gone, who treats dismembered body parts with a care that borders on reverence. This is a level of psychological disturbance that goes beyond typical criminal behavior. Detective Kuhn catches the case and immediately recognizes similarities to Peter Anderson's ending 14 months earlier. Same method, same precision, same disturbing attention to cleanliness. He starts wondering if they're dealing with a serial offender. May 1993. Michael Sakara, 56 years old, is a regular at the Five Oaks Piano Bar in Greenwich Village. He's well-liked, a fixture in the neighborhood, someone who knows the bartenders by name, and they know his usual order. On the night of May 4th, bartender Lisa Hall is working when she notices a white male approach Sakara and sit down beside him, despite the fact that there are numerous empty seats throughout the bar. This stranger doesn't sit across from Michael or a few seats away. He sits directly next to him, invading his personal space in a way that suggests either familiarity or intention. The stranger orders a scotch and water. Michael, already several drinks in and clearly feeling sociable, strikes up a conversation. Lisa hears Michael introduce the man as a nurse at St. Vincent's Hospital. That detail, the nurse at St. Vincent S., will become crucial later. Michael and the stranger talk for about an hour, their conversation seeming friendly, casual. Then they leave together. Lisa Hall watches them walk out into the Manhattan night, thinking nothing of it. 2 men meeting at a bar, hitting it off, leaving together. It happens every night in Greenwich Village. Michael Sakara is never seen alive again. His dismembered body is found in garbage bags along a New Jersey roadway, showing the same signature. 7 pieces, surgical precision, everything washed clean. The media finally connects the dots and gives the perpetrator a name: the last call killer. Someone is stalking New York's gay bars, targeting vulnerable men during their final drinks of the night and then making them disappear. Detective Kuhn is now running a task force, and they're working around the clock. They create a composite sketch based on Lisa Hall's description and other witness accounts. White male, approximately mid-30s, brown hair, Average build, unremarkable features. The kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after seeing it. The sketch leads them to Mark Slayton, a 38-year-old male nurse who works at St. Vincent's Hospital and lives on Staten Island. Everything fits: the age, the appearance, the occupation, the location. They bring Slayton in for questioning and fingerprinting. And then, nothing. His fingerprints don't match the partial prints lifted from the garbage bags. He's not their killer. Back to square one, except now they know something important. Their perpetrator is connected to Staten Island. Investigators discover that latex gloves found at one crime scene were purchased at a CVS pharmacy on Staten Island. A President's Choice shopping bag found with Anthony Marrero's remains comes from a brand sold at only 9 locations. One of them just blocks from that same CVS. The puzzle pieces are pointing to a specific area, but Staten Island has 500,000 residents. It's like being told your needle is definitely in this particular haystack. But the haystack is still massive. Forensic teams had managed to lift 2 partial fingerprints from the garbage bags using superglue fuming, a technique where superglue vapors adhere to the oils in fingerprints, making them visible. But when they run these prints through national databases, nothing comes back. Their killer has no criminal record, or at least not one that's been digitized and entered into the system. Detective Kuhn is desperate. He has his own children help him distribute flyers with a composite sketch to every hospital on Staten Island. They go door to door, showing the image to nurses and doctors and administrators, hoping someone will recognize this face. Nothing. The killer is a ghost. And after Michael Sakara's ending in 1993, the attacks simply stop. No more bodies, no more victims, just silence. 8 years pass. 8 long years where the families of Peter Anderson, Thomas Mulcahy, Anthony Marrero, and Michael Sakara wait for answers that never come. 8 years where Detective Kuhn lies awake at night, haunted by the cases he can't solve, wondering if the killer has just gotten better at hiding bodies, or if he's moved to another city, or if he's gone away himself. The evidence sits in storage. The fingerprints on file can't be matched to anyone. The case grows colder with each passing year. But in 2001, Detective Kuhn learns about a revolutionary new forensic technique being developed in Toronto called vacuum metal deposition. The process sounds like science fiction. You heat gold to 2000 degrees Fahrenheit, creating a vapor that adheres to surfaces where fingerprints once existed. Then you use zinc to lock the prints in place, making visible what was previously invisible. Even after years of storage and degradation, it's expensive. It's experimental. It's never been used on a case this old. Kuhn doesn't care. He sends a dozen garbage bags from various crime scenes to the Canadian lab, along with a prayer that this technology will finally give him the break he needs. The results come back weeks later, and they're extraordinary. 16 partial prints from the Thomas Mulcahy case, and 3 from Anthony Marrero's ending, all of much higher quality than what they had before. Clear ridges, distinct patterns, the kind of prints that can actually be matched to a suspect. But when they run these enhanced prints through the national database again, the result is the same. No matches. The killer still has no criminal record in the system. Or does he? Detective Kuhn realizes something crucial. Not every state has digitized their fingerprint records. Some states still maintain paper files, physical cards with inked prints from arrests that happened decades ago, long before computers took over. It's a long shot, but it's the only shot he has left. He makes copies of the enhanced fingerprints and mails them to crime labs across the country, with a personal note explaining the case and begging them to conduct manual searches through their physical archives. Most states don't have the time or resources for such a labor-intensive process. They send polite refusals. But in Maine, a fingerprint examiner named Kim Stevens receives the package and decides to try. She's not optimistic. The chances of finding a match in Maine's archives seem impossibly slim. But she enters the prints into Maine's recently digitized state database, and incredibly, 30 potential matches appear on her screen. 30 possible suspects. Working with painstaking precision, Kim Stevens begins the process of comparing the evidence prints to each of the 30 potential matches, side by side, ridge by ridge, looking for the distinctive characteristics that make every fingerprint unique. 29 don't match. Close, but not quite. The ridges diverge just slightly, or a whorl appears where it shouldn't, or the pattern breaks down under close examination. But the 30th print, ridge by ridge, every single characteristic lines up perfectly. It's a match. An absolute, court-admissible, no question about it match. The killer finally has a name. Richard W. Rogers Jr. Detective Kuhn pulls Rogers' criminal history. And what he finds makes his stomach turn, not just because of what Rogers did, but because of what he got away with. Rogers is a graduate student at the University of Maine, living in an apartment building near campus. One of his neighbors is Frederick Spencer, a man Rogers later claims made unwanted sexual advances toward him. On October 10, 1973, Rogers goes away Frederick Spencer with a hammer. Multiple blows to the head, brutal and sustained. Then Rogers wraps the body in a nylon tent, carries it to his car, and dumps it along a roadside like garbage. He's arrested. He's charged with deliberate, premeditated ending of life. And then, incredibly, he's acquitted. Rogers claims self-defense, says Spencer attacked him after making sexual advances. The jury, in 1973 in Maine, in an era of rampant homophobia, believes him. They find him not guilty. Think about that. Rogers establishes a pattern in 1973 that he'll perfect over the next 2 decades. Target gay men, end their lives, dispose of their bodies, and blame the victims. After his acquittal, Rogers moves to New York and becomes a nurse. He attends nursing school, gets his certification, and lands a job as a surgical assistant at Mount Sinai Hospital. Not St. Vincent ES, as he told his victims, but close enough that the lie was believable. He's working in operating rooms, learning surgical techniques, studying human anatomy in the most intimate way possible. Every day, he's cutting into bodies, disarticulating joints, understanding exactly how the human form comes apart. And at night, he's hunting. June 2001. Armed with the fingerprint match from Maine, detectives obtain an arrest warrant for Richard Rogers. They find him working in the ICU at Mount Sinai Hospital, wearing scrubs, tending to patients, looking like any other dedicated healthcare professional. When they take him into custody, his co-workers are stunned. Rogers? Quiet, unremarkable Rogers? The guy who keeps to himself, does his job competently, never causes problems. He's a serial predator who's been dismembering gay men for a decade. They don't believe it. They can't believe it. But Lisa Hall, the bartender from the Five Oaks Piano Bar, identifies his photograph immediately. That's him. That's absolutely him. That's the man she saw sitting next to Michael Sakara on that final night. The man who introduced himself as a nurse. The man who left with Michael and made sure he never came home. When investigators search Rogers' apartment on Staten Island, they find a horror show disguised as a normal home. His video collection is filled with slasher films, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, horror movies featuring dismemberment and violence. But what really chills them is his Bible. Passages about beheadings and dismemberments are carefully marked, highlighted, studied. Rogers has been treating scripture like an instruction manual for his crimes. And in his medicine cabinet, they find a vial of prescription sedatives, drugs not typically screened for in routine autopsies. The perfect weapon for someone who wants his victims compliant before he ends them. The method exposed. As prosecutors build their case, Rogers' method becomes crystal clear. He frequented gay bars across Manhattan, the Townhouse, the Five Oaks, places where men seeking companionship or community would feel safe. He targeted men who were heavily intoxicated, vulnerable, less likely to make good decisions about who they trusted. He introduced himself as a nurse, building instant credibility. People trust nurses. Nurses help people. Nurses save lives. It was the perfect cover, the perfect way to lower someone's guard. He'd strike up friendly conversations, seem interested and engaging. And then he'd suggest they go somewhere quieter, somewhere more private. Maybe his place, just across the river on Staten Island. Just a short trip, nothing to worry about. Once he had them in his apartment, he'd drug them with the sedatives from his medicine cabinet. Powerful medications that would make resistance impossible. Then he'd stab them, watching them go away, fulfilling whatever dark fantasy drove him to this madness. But the ending wasn't enough. He needed more. He'd dismember the bodies with surgical precision, using his knowledge of anatomy to disarticulate at the joints rather than hacking through bone. Clean cuts, professional cuts. The kind of cuts that suggested someone who'd done this before, who knew exactly what they were doing. And then came the washing. Hours spent cleaning each body part, each piece of his victim, treating the remains with a tenderness that was somehow more disturbing than the violence itself. This wasn't about destroying evidence. It was about intimacy, about maintaining connection with his victims even in death. At night, under cover of darkness, Rogers would load the remains into his car and drive to New Jersey, Pennsylvania. Anywhere outside New York City limits. He'd dump the bags along highways and turnpikes, in rest areas and picnic spots, places where they'd eventually be found, but never connected back to him. It was a system, a routine, a method that had worked perfectly for years because the technology to catch him simply didn't exist, until it did. October 2005. Richard Rogers' trial begins in Toms River, New Jersey. He's facing charges for the endings of Thomas Mulcahy and Anthony Marrero, the two cases with the strongest forensic evidence. The prosecution can't use his confession about the 1973 ending in Maine since he was acquitted, but Judge James Sitta rules that evidence about Peter Anderson and Michael Sakara's cases can be presented due to their striking similarities. During jury selection, prosecutors offer Rogers a plea deal. Plead guilty to manslaughter in both cases and receive 2 30-year sentences with the possibility of parole after 15 years. If he also pleads guilty to third-degree ending in Peter Anderson's case, he'd receive an additional 10 to 20 years. Rogers considers it over the weekend. His attorneys probably tell him it's his best option. He could potentially be out in 15 years, still have a life afterward. But Rogers declines the deal. He's going to take his chances with a jury. The trial unfolds with devastating precision. Witnesses describe discovering the dismembered remains. Detectives explain the investigation, the years of dead ends, the frustration of chasing a ghost. Kim Stevens, the fingerprint examiner from Maine, testifies about the match that finally cracked the case. Lisa Hall takes the stand and identifies Rogers as the man she saw with Michael Sakara. Her certainty is absolute. That's him. That's the face she's remembered for 12 years. That's the man who took Michael away. Forensic analysts explained the vacuum metal deposition process, how it revealed fingerprints that had been invisible for nearly a decade. They show side-by-side comparisons of Rogers' prints and the evidence prints. The match is undeniable. Rogers doesn't testify, doesn't offer an explanation, doesn't express remorse. He just sits at the defense table, his face blank, his eyes cold, staring straight ahead like all of this is happening to someone else. The jury deliberates for 3 hours and 45 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Rogers shows no reaction to the verdict. His face doesn't change. His body doesn't move. He just continues staring at the front of the courtroom as if the words "guilty" don't mean anything to him. The judge sentences him to 2 consecutive life sentences plus 65 years. He'll never leave prison. He'll never hurt another person. His hunting days are over forever. Richard Rogers is still alive today. Now 74 years old, he's serving his 2 consecutive life sentences at New Jersey State Prison in Trenton, a maximum security facility that's home to some of the state's most dangerous criminals. According to official records, Rogers is technically eligible for parole on September 18, 2066. He would be 116 years old. It's the justice system's way of saying he's never getting out without actually saying, "You're going to go away here." In 2021, author Elon Green published Last Call, a true story of love, lust, and ending in queer New York. A comprehensive examination of Rogers' crimes that focused primarily on the victims rather than the perpetrator. Green attempted to interview Rogers for the book, but was refused. According to what Green learned from prison sources, Rogers maintains his innocence despite the overwhelming forensic evidence. He's described as a frequent letter writer who enjoys watching the news. Guards report that he doesn't seem unhappy. He's adapted to prison life with bland detachment. In 2023, HBO released a documentary series called Last Call: When a Serial Killer Stalked Queer New York. The filmmakers also attempted to get Rogers to participate, offering him a chance to tell his side of the story. He refused again. The big question that everyone has, prosecutors, investigators, victims, families, true crime researchers, is simply, why? Why did Richard Rogers do this? What drove him to target gay men specifically? What psychological break made dismemberment and washing of bodies a crucial part of his ritual? What satisfaction did he derive from these acts? Rogers has never explained. In interviews with court-appointed psychiatrists during his trial, he was evasive, deflective, providing clinical descriptions of his actions without any emotional context or self-reflection. He referred to dismemberment using surgical terminology, discussing the process like he was describing a routine medical procedure rather than the desecration of human remains. The truth is, we may never know what was going on in Richard Rogers' mind. And in a way, that's fitting. He wanted to be invisible, wanted to be a ghost, wanted his victims to disappear without anyone caring enough to look for them. Instead, he's a footnote in true crime history, a cautionary tale about how technology eventually catches up with everyone. A reminder that cold cases aren't really cold. They're just waiting for science to advance enough to solve them. The families of his victims have found some measure of closure, though the wounds will never fully heal. Thomas Mulcahy's children had to process the revelation about their father's secret life while grieving his brutal ending. Michael Sakara's partner spent years wondering what happened that night. For Lisa Hall, the bartender who saw Rogers with Michael Sakara and whose memory helped identify him 12 years later, there's validation in knowing her testimony helped put a predator away forever. That's what makes Rogers so terrifying. He looked normal. He acted normal. He was a nurse, someone society trusts implicitly. He had no visible warning signs, no obvious tells. He could sit next to you at a bar, strike up a friendly conversation about work or the weather or whatever topic seemed appropriate. Order a drink with the casual confidence of someone who belonged there. And you'd never suspect for a second that you were talking to a monster. That's the nightmare reality of predators like Rogers. They don't look like monsters. They look like everyone else. The last call killer case changed forensic science forever. Vacuum metal deposition, the technology that finally revealed Rogers' fingerprints after years of storage, is now standard practice in cold case investigations worldwide. The technique has helped solve hundreds of cases that were once considered unsolvable. But this case also exposed something darker about how society treats certain victims. In the early 1990s, New York City was experiencing unprecedented violence. The AIDS epidemic was devastating the gay community. Police were overwhelmed, and cases involving gay men, especially those who were closeted and living double lives, didn't receive the same attention as cases involving respectable victims. Peter Anderson disappeared in 1991, and his case went cold almost immediately. Thomas Mulcahy vanished in 1992, and the investigation stalled. It took until 1993, with Michael Sakara's ending and Lisa Hall's eyewitness account, for law enforcement to truly acknowledge they were dealing with a serial predator targeting the gay community. Think about how many lives might have been saved if the investigation had been more aggressive from the start. Technology caught Richard Rogers in the end. Vacuum metal deposition revealed fingerprints he thought he'd cleaned away. A digitized database in Maine connected a 1973 case to murders committed 2 decades later. A bartender's memory put a face to the crimes. But it shouldn't have taken a decade and revolutionary forensic technology to catch him. Rogers wanted to be invisible. He wanted his victims to disappear without a trace, without anyone caring, without justice ever being served. He was almost right. Almost. But technology advanced. Investigators refused to give up. A fingerprint examiner in Maine took the time to search through physical records. And justice, slow and imperfect as it was, finally arrived. Richard Rogers will spend the rest of his life in prison, his hunting days over. The man who turned last call into final call for at least 4 men sits in a cell in Trenton, maintaining his innocence, watching the news, writing letters to people who don't write back. The bars of Greenwich Village still serve drinks. The piano still plays at the Five Oaks. Life goes on. But the families of Peter Anderson, Thomas Mulcahy, Anthony Marrero, and Michael Sakara will never forget. And neither should we.